Welcome to Unsung Heroes Live. Life's biggest questions are answered through intimate conversations with people just like you who've risen above life's challenges and desire to share their knowledge to help others. I am your host, Kristie Knights. Welcome to Unsung Heroes podcast, Tamera. It is great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Let me share with the audience a little bit about you before we get started. Does that sound good?
Amazing. Can't wait.
Great. So listen up, guys. Tamera spent most of her life afraid of using her voice, afraid that it would upset the ones that she loved the most in her life, who suffered from mental illness. This fear kept her from connecting to her stardust and learning that she had the gift of reading energy. When she wrote her first book, My Kid is Driving Me Crazy, a mom's survival guide for living with a child with mental illness, she busted open her throat chakra and root chakra. With clear path to receive, she realized that she could read chakras and went right to work. She spent months studying what the energy looked like and how it affected life and business. Since then, she's written The Magical Business Method, that coaches others on how removing stored energy in the chakras can create space to call in incredible opportunities and abundance into their lives. Welcome, Tamera. It is great to have you on our show today.
It is so great to be here. Thank you for asking me to be on the show, Kristie. I'm honored.
Absolutely. And I love that you have the books in the background. Congratulations.
Thank you. It still kind of is like, oh my goodness, I'm an author. Right? Yeah. Becoming that person and using that actual tag was in itself a struggle. But I'm there now. I'm good.
Absolutely. What was it like to birth two books?
And the funny thing is if somebody were to ask me, what did you do last year? I would say that I put on my blinders and the only thing I focused on was writing my book and serving the people from the programs in the book. There was nothing else, no distractions, people calling or events and, even the fear of missing out. I just had to put everything on the back burner in order to be in that place to receive the messaging that I meant to write through and standing in a place of service.
Wow, that is incredible because we know as entrepreneurs, it is so difficult to have that level of laser focus, especially when you're getting phone calls for events, speaking engagements. So how did you develop that laser focus, Tamera?
It became a commitment. It just when I started writing the book, basically in last January of 2017, it was a commitment I made to myself. It was an extremely uncomfortable experience for me, emotionally, spiritually, busting through my fears. And so I gave myself permission, right? Which I think is sometimes the thing we do have the hardest part, to set clear boundaries with myself and honor them, that because this was such a personal story and such an important, impactful book that I wanted to get out there, that I gave that permission to say no to things that didn't keep me in that space of focus for, again, being open to getting this message out so that it can help others.
Yes. So Tamera, share with us your journey to be able to come to this place in life where you're able to laser focus. I know that you yourself had struggled with some anxiety.
Well, the crazy part about the story, and it's not crazy, but I grew up in a family of mental illness, right? So I don't remember really a childhood where I wasn't affected on some level. So I became took a very parental role very young to care for my mother, which I don't regret. I think it's a beautiful relationship that her and I have, but I always became the strong one. Right. So that was my title. That was what I kind of encased myself in. And so for all of my adolescence, going into young motherhood, having my son who then suffered from mental illness, I always needed to be the strong one. Now in 2000, and I believe he's going to be 20 when he was 16. So 4 years ago, so 2014, we had to break apart, my son and I, for toxic reasons. And it didn't last very long. It was 6 months. But that moment where I didn't need to be strong for anyone anymore, when I let down all of those barriers, that is when my anxiety and my depression kicked in, because all of a sudden I could feel it because I had let down all of these walls. And that's where my personal work really began.
Yes. So you just said so many powerful things that we could have multiple podcasts. But share with me, we'll go chronological. Share with me, growing up in a family where you had to care for mom, what types of skills did you develop to be able to care for yourself?
Well, looking back, there were certain things that I just did automatically. Like when you're a kid, you innately step up into things and you don't realize that you're doing it, right? So my mom didn't go out much, right? So I filtered my life to be home with her so that, and I mean, I didn't look at it in a bad way. I just became really creative. So I started to, color a lot and draw a lot and write stories. And I can remember sitting on the couch next to her and always having a stack of like journals and books and things that I was working on, which translates into, I still have a book, like loads of books beside me in journals. And the very first thing I created when I started to go through my process, after I looked back on all of the skills I actually had garnished while I was home with her, was I created a color to create your most amazing year based off of the things that I learned by staying home with her, right? But the biggest thing that was being raised in a house with mental illness, and this is why in the second book it became super important for me to talk about, was the fact that I'm just gonna say it like it is. I walked on eggshells a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like I knew that if I said certain things or I acted a certain way, that I could upset my mom, right? Like, and when you upset a parent who suffers from mental illness, like she would go to bed and she would sleep and it would become more challenging, right? And my sister is a beautiful person, but she had her own things going on. And so I was always there to actually parent my mom when she was crying or sad or upset, right? So I think there was a piece that I learned and that I had to come back to of reconnecting to my child and my fun and my play, right? Because I had given that up in order to be with her. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So through the years, as you struggled with the anxiety, what were some of the skills that you developed as a young adult that you can offer our listeners?
So in my young adulthood, it was more so like, I'll give you an example. When I was younger, my mom wouldn't drive on the highway.
Okay.
Right? So I had a severe bladder infection, needed to go to a hospital 45 minutes away. I remember being on the floor and my mom on the phone trying to get there. So one of the things that I needed to do was to remember that I didn't need to carry my mom's belief systems as my own because her fear was not my fear. So I would find myself doing things like finding jobs that forced me to drive on the highway. So I remember doing home party presentations, and I chose that job just so that I would have to travel in a small radius around my city so that I could become comfortable and realize that her fear was not mine.
Yes.
So kind of right away, it was like that sense of what do I say? It's like that deconstruction. Is this my fear or is it the fear of something that I've heard or seen growing up?
Yes. So as a mother, I'm listening to you and I have two beautiful teenage children, and it can be such a challenge. They are 16 and 17, and your heart breaks when their heart breaks. You're joyous when they're joyous, and oftentimes you're on this roller coaster. But I can't even fathom the thought of being away from them for a long period of time. So share with us a little bit about what you're comfortable, the circumstances, and what led you to that courage to say, I can't do this right now.
So this is a whole other like major story. Ethan always was slightly different. Like even when he was 5, you could tell that there were things. By the time he was 8, he was threatening to, knife himself from belly button to the top of his head. And we went through a lot of struggles, behavioral, addictions, all those kinds of things, right? Yeah. So over the years, it got to a place where he was toxic to himself and toxic to the family. Like my husband and I weren't sleeping. We had other kids. Ethan had no concern for what was going on around him. And it got to a place where I've been in therapy since I was like, 13-ish.
Yeah.
And so and so I remember my therapist saying, like, at some point you have to realize if things continue the way they are, this will always be your story.
Wow.
Right? Because she had said, I still work with parents who are in the same boat, but their kids are 30, 40 years old. And you have to remember that everybody's journey starts at a different age. And I moved out when I was 17. So this didn't seem abnormal. But the biggest thing I did was actually say to myself, detach yourself emotionally. And it was like my saving grace. If anyone treated me the way that my son was treating me, how would I respond?
Yes, yes. That's powerful because as parents, we get intertwined into that. And it's hard because we don't want to do more damage or hurt them in any way. So, how did this experience with your son lead you to your book?
So it's funny because even if I were to look at, I have like my top 10 major goals I wanted to accomplish in 2015 up on my wall, and write a mental health book is like on the list, right? So when you grow up, because we always know that we've experienced the life that we've experienced for a reason, right? So I always knew there's no way that I was a daughter and a mother to mental illness if I wasn't meant to serve with it on some capacity, right? And so when my son and I did finally split up, and I was standing there in my living room, and I can remember feeling like I didn't know who I was or what I was doing.
Yeah.
There's always been this innate urge to write my book within me. Like there's a reason why I've done this. And so going through those first powerfully difficult months of severe depression and anxiety for myself, and coming back into the light, everything that the universe had done up in that point just steered me. I felt like a steered ship. I don't know how to explain it, to get to that place where I was introduced to Angela Laria and the author incubator, and it created the safe space that I needed, right? In order to get the voice out in a way that it was serving. Because there's a way in which we can tell our story that is just us telling our story. And then there's the way that we tell the story so that somebody else who is reading it can go, thank you, I needed this.
Yes. Oh, that is powerful. So what was it like to sit down with a book and just really begin to be that vulnerable and transparent?
Well, I avoided it for a really long time. And then I remember submitting what I thought was my first chapter, and Angela sending it back and going, I love it. It's fantastic, but it's not your first chapter. And I was like, what? And she was like, that's not your story. And so you spend all your time working on clearing things out and not holding it within you. And, you know, you're like, I've closed the door. I don't want to have to look back on this. You know what I mean? I've done this work, all of this. So when it came down to actually having to go back into that space and feel it again and to live it in order to get that first chapter out, the first time I wrote it, it was just like, get it all out. I was bawling my eyes out. I slammed the computer down, and it was like, oh my goodness, that was deep. That was difficult, right? But once I went back and edited it to be in service, I realized that that's exactly how the book needed to start, right? Like you have to be able to feel what those feelings were, which requires, and I think that was part of the clearing for me energetically as well, is to re-feel and actually do the work to remove it permanently, as opposed to just sweep it aside and tuck it in a little box in my energetic system and go like, hi, you're there, but I don't feel you right now, so you're good.
Right. So when you were going through the anxiety and the depression in those darkest days, what were you doing to fight through that? How did you come out the other side of that?
Oh man. Okay. So like, I just remember like I had to work still. So, I mean, I'll be straight up with you. I got into a place of telling myself that it's okay that I look like a hippie and I don't wear a bra and I don't wear makeup, because I'm organic and I'm natural as a personal trainer. And, you know, looking like this is, you know, perfectly okay. And it is perfectly okay. Right. But I can look back and know that it was part of my sadness. But I remember being in the fetal position and still not telling anybody that I was sad or depressed. Right. Because I still carried that I'm the strong one piece. And so after crying day in and day out, it started with simply saying, what can I do today to make myself feel just a little bit better? And this is making me emotional. What can I do today to just feel a little bit better? And I remember scrolling through my Facebook, and there's a woman named Carrie Samuels. And for some reason, this Meditating with the Angels 30-day challenge came up. And I clicked on it. And for 30 days, I slept, really is what I did through every single meditation. But I showed up every single day. I used to call it, oh, I'm going to nap right now. But eventually, the subconscious mind caught up to the work that needed to be done. And meditation really has become a pivotal part of dealing with my personal depression and anxiety that I suffer from, which is really my superpower now. But at the time, it wasn't. And so it was creating that relationship with each other at that time through meditation.
So many people don't know how to meditate or feel frustrated with meditation, or they feel like it's just this, and they get whacked out about it. So how did you develop that skill to do it and be patient enough with yourself?
Because there's no right or wrong. That's all I kept saying. There's no right or wrong. Whatever is happening is supposed to be happening. Like if I'm sitting there and my mind is in 17 different places, it's meant to, and I'm going to try and get myself back to thinking of them as clouds and breathing. But I was never hard on myself. I never told myself I wasn't doing it right. I just allowed it to be whatever it was and figured that was what I was meant to be experiencing or feeling at that time. And again, it came back to giving yourself permission, right? Because that's the piece where we get all of the beliefs that it has to be done a certain way. You have to have this done, and you have to sit down, you have to have a meditation pillow, and you have to sit cross-legged. I laid down, I was on my bed, I was on my couch. I was like, I just recently got a meditation pillow, and this has been like 3-4 years, and I don't always use it. It's what feels good in the moment.
Yes, yes. What has been the benefit of giving yourself permission?
The benefit is that fear is the opposite of giving yourself permission, because you can find about 1 million reasons why you cannot do something.
Yes.
Right? I can't do it because I have no time, no money, I don't have the support, I have a child with mental illness, all of these. And by giving myself permission to fail forward, to give myself permission to do everything wrong. And that was something actually that I said last year as I was writing my book. That was the biggest permission I'd given myself, which was, you can do everything wrong right now because nobody's watching you.
Yes.
Right? And that was that permission to just show up.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's about taking these first few steps, because the steps are going to change. The road is going to change, but you won't know what the road looks like if you stand, at the curb and look at it and go like, I don't know where I'm going. We don't know where we're going. We never know where we're going. It just takes the permission to step.
And I think so many people get wrapped up in and forget to give themselves permission, whether it's permission to be sad or angry or feel, the pit of the scum, or to feel happy. Just giving permission is incredibly powerful.
You're so right. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is the biggest piece of permission that you give yourself. And it's something that I hold so true to and work so hard with my clients to give them permission to feel. Right? Because feelings are actually like guiding posts. They are like, I always say, the minute that you can see a feeling and are aware of it, it's like opening the book of easy in your life, because it's like when you get a pain in your body, right? Mm-hmm. Pain is always there for a reason. It's there to bring attention to something.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right?
So share with me just a brief synopsis of My Kid is Driving Me Crazy, so that we can share with the audience the benefit of purchasing this book.
So one of the big factors in this book, and one of the reasons why I needed to write it, was when Ethan and I had split up, and having been the daughter as well, was this I didn't know who I was anymore feeling, because we start to live externally at times in our life. And so I got focused into being the mom and being the daughter and helping everybody. And at that time, you pull yourself energetically out of your body, right? And so the book is really the journey about going within. So how can you be present to serve or do what it is that you're meant to do on this earth at the same time as having a child with mental illness, right? Because they're two separate things. And so the book is just the journey that I took to get to the place of stepping into my body, my power and service. And hopefully that will help others to do the same, right? To step out of the chaos a little bit and figure out where their future is going.
Yes, yes. So share with us, what is a chakra?
Ooh, this is a fun story, Kristie, because I didn't actually know. So once I busted open my throat and my root chakra last year in February, and I thank Angela Laria for creating that space for me to do so safely, was the fact that I just literally had started, little side stories, through meditation, I started to hear angels, and they've been leading me into different avenues and paths. So February, I just by myself, walking between the bathroom to my bedroom, all I heard was, you can read chakras. And I was like, what? And then like, what? Like, because really, and I was like, but I don't know anything about chakras. I don't know their color. I don't know what they do. And I heard, we will we will guide you. And one of my things is, if I'm going to learn from anything or anyone, it's going to be the universe. Like, that's the greatest teacher I can ever have. And so I went directly to my computer. I didn't get into my own head and think of all the reasons why this wasn't real and I couldn't do it. I just immediately went to the computer and went, hey, apparently I can read chakras. Is there anyone open to letting me practice on them? And from there, so that was February. Again, you kind of go into your own mind a little bit. It's like, I'm serving moms who have children with mental illness. Why am I downloading that I'm meant to read chakras here? And again, there's that little bit of taking those steps, and the path becomes clearer and clearer. And then since then, by June, it was like, I need to write this book. I need to get this information, because I had done over like hundreds of chakra readings at that point and seen such a dynamic, like pattern of storage, energetic storage, and people not being able to step fully into what it is that they were meant to do. And so that's how the second book in the Chakra Business Academy was born, was because seeing, again, I only know what I was taught and guided to learn about each chakra. So each one is energetically linked to different areas of our life, right? So I could go off on a little tangent here about, like, especially the root one. And if I only talk about that, I feel like this is a really powerful beginning point for people, because it's the one that's most overlooked. And so when we're born, with 7 billion people in the world, right? We may not be actually born into our tribe anymore. Not like back in the olden days where there was 100 people in your tribe and everybody had a role, right? There's too many people, but we spend our life energetically trying to fit in with parents or friends or coworkers, and we spend all of our beautiful, glorious light energy striving to get this approval, afraid of what they're going to say, not putting boundaries in place. And the result is people aren't satisfied with us, right? And then we take that personally, and energetically we go down. But what if you decided that you were no longer going to give that much energy to the people that are not part of your tribe, and you diminish that energetic exchange to a smaller amount? The result is still they're not satisfied, but now you have like, it's 95% of your like tribe vibe back, and you can actually turn it towards putting the message out, being present for the people, and sharing your mission out into the world and your stardust. And there in itself is a big key indicating factor of, like, this is what happened when I wrote my first book, was that I cleared my root chakra and was able to step into that space of service.
Okay, so can you give us a working definition of chakra?
Oh, chakra to me is just an energetic storage. To me, they represent, like, if you were to think about different points in your body.
Yes.
Right. So from your tailbone to the top of your head, there's 7. That to me, that they present as being like glasses on their side. Like if you were to take a water glass and put it on its side, and inside is swirling energy. Right? And so the top, or the rim of the glass, is where your current energetic state is. So like if I were to pass over it without going in, it's just whatever is currently being put out into the world is like a flashlight. But then when you actually enter it and get in the swirl, think of it like a drill, and you go deeper and deeper into the chakra to find what the stored energy is that maybe you've been carrying for any length of time.
Yes. So explain to our listeners, what is a chakra reading? Let's dispel any myths or fear around it.
So again, I think that everybody is given the way to read chakra that is for the person that they are here to serve. So the way that I was given mine, which I didn't know at the time, was that I'm meant to go in and help people find whatever it is that's stored energy. I consider it the plaque on the chakra wall, if you will. So it's anything that you might be holding onto without knowing about or seeing. And so other people I know are healers of it, openers, there's all sorts of different, but my job is to actually bring awareness to what it is that may be blocking you from pulling your universal light all the way in. Because if we think about bringing in energy from source, right? If you're in your head in the what ifs, and creating non-truths that don't exist. Well, if I do this, then this might happen, and then this might happen, and this might happen. This beautiful receiving energy doesn't even make it past your third eye. Then you got to open your throat, right? So clearly, are you using your voice as a mission to get your your vehicle to get your mission out into the world. Then into your heart, are you holding people that you're not responsible for? And then bringing it into, are you holding beliefs that are yours? And then we get down to sacral, which is standing confidently in your body and declaring it, right? Owning your energy, this is the beautiful vehicle that you were given here on this earth to bring your message out, however it looks. It's yours and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful. And there's a sitting into that and owning that, and right down into the root, right? So it's really about clearing out each one, and it's not painful.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Yes, no pain. Many times when I recommend people to hypnotherapy, they'll say, well, I can't do that. And there are some people who just can't get into that state of relaxation to benefit from hypnotherapy. Is reading chakras the same thing, or can anybody be a part of it?
Anyone can be a part of it. I always say, like, part of me is like, ooh, Kristie, do you want me to just jump into your chakras and do a hotspot check for you?
Yes.
Because I can do that right now.
Can we do it through video?
Oh, yes. So my merging of energies is really, really quite simple. So what I do is I'll just ask permission always. Is it okay if I merge energies with you right now?
Yeah. Can we just walk through it together?
Yeah. I'll totally tell you everything that I'm doing.
Okay. So
You don't need to do anything. Like, I always wish that I had some sort of like indicator, like a firework or a sign would go off, but the merging of energy is really quite simple. It's just like nothing happens. I just imagine that I am allowing my energetic self to sit into your energetic self, right? So I start to inhabit everything about you, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. I can feel your heart rate right now. And then I look away, because energy doesn't actually have form. It shows me different things. So like right now, I actually see that you are surrounded in white light, which is beautiful, because it tells me that you're being guided by something far greater than our own personal selves. And a hotspot check is that I'm just going to run from the top of your head down and feel out. So this is for you personally. Whenever I'm doing a hotspot check, these are the areas that are the most to focus on. So there's a couple things that I feel right off the bat. I do feel you get into your head sometimes. So I feel right away that deeper thought process that you go through. Another thing that I also feel for you is in what I explain as an energetic flow. Our heart exhales and then we inhale. You're very good at giving, not so great at receiving. So I can feel the exhale, but I don't feel you inhaling at the same time. There is a piece here that I can feel in the hotspot check of needing to be in control, keeping things together, not necessarily giving yourself permission to relax and release as often as it would feel good to.
Very true.
And the biggest thing that I can say, Kristie, that I feel is in your solar plexus. And the solar plexus is where we store other people's beliefs and our current belief systems and all sorts of things. So I kind of think of it as like Ariel's cave of wonder, if you will. Look at this stuff, isn't it neat? Like when people are saying something to us, we have approximately 3 seconds before we absorb it into a belief, or we use a baseball bat of light to like bunt it back into the universe. There's a little tightness in here. I'm not going in to read it because this is not necessarily the time or place, but I can feel its tightness. So I can tell you that you're carrying something here that is, I'm not saying holding you back, but it's definitely affecting certain things in decisions and where you're going right now. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Right? And then the most important part, because I would love to do this for you like a full one, is that when and this is for any energy reader here, when I come out of your energy, which I'm doing now, I'm going to cut the cords between us so that we're not like hanging out and I'm not energetically feeling you for the rest of the interview.
That is important.
right? So it does separate us as self, so I can come back into my body fully, and you are present in yours. But that's basically what the beginning of a chakra reading looks like.
That was
And then I
painless.
delve deep in.
Yeah, that was painless. I didn't feel anything physically.
Nothing.
I didn't feel nausea. I didn't feel like you were trying to like read my mind. I didn't feel, I just felt relaxed. I will say that. I felt relaxed.
Well, I always say that, again, once you get out of your own head, because ego is a bad person most of the time, right? Our current self is going to try and stop us from doing everything to expand into the next version of ourselves. It is very highly needed in order to make rational decisions. Don't get me wrong. But when you allow yourself to just kind of move over and let whatever needs to flow through. So even when I'm merging energies with you, I think of it as not being Tamera the me. It's really just source flowing through my energy to get whatever message it is that you need to you.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for
I
your gift.
love you.
Love you. So share with us what it was the biggest contributor for your growth.
The biggest contributor of my growth, other than the permission piece that I taking back my power, I can actually tell you that I never stopped surrounding myself with people who were doing what I wanted to be doing. So even when Ethan and I broke up, that's when I began that. Was like I joined a program that was a year-long program that helped me, right, expand into this beautiful energy. And then you and I met at a program at the beginning of April. And then from that, I didn't stop, right? That one was great because it gave me the business practicality, but it didn't really do the emotional work. So the next one I did the emotional work, but didn't have the business practicality. And then I did mindset work, but it didn't have application. And then I went right into the author incubator. But like, when you give it's like this valuing of yourself, right? And so I valued myself. This was my education. This was, stepping into the world with the tools that I needed and the energy that I needed in order to get to that space of fully being seen and being fearless in the act of service.
How did you come to a place of valuing yourself?
Oh, it wasn't pretty. So I remember when I signed up for that program, I felt so much guilt. It was incredible. Like, I have 4 kids. And so to spend any amount of money on myself, it was like, oh my God, I'm taking from my family. And I remember I was like, I'm going to do craft shows as a means to make the money. But if you actually sit into that pocket and realize that there is no coincidences, it was because I did craft shows that I became the Enchanted Fairy. Because for some reason, when I went to Michael's and decided I was going to do craft shows, I picked up Fimo, which is like this clay stuff that my sister used to do. And we had done like one time, and I sat down, and what came out of my hands without any coaching or training was fairy doors and fairy houses.
Oh, how cool.
It was kind of neat. I was making fairy wands and I was going to these craft shows. And this is the TSN turning point for me where, and that's, sorry, the sports network in Canada, like the gameplay changed. and I would see these people walking by my craft table. Yes. And, they'd be parents with these kids, and the kids would be pulling their parent towards my table, and the face of the parent would light up. And then you could see the switch that went off that said, oh, honey, no, not this table. Like, we don't, it was like they didn't give themselves permission to allow their inner child to kind of come over to the table a little bit. And that really started to shift my work.
Okay. Yes. So talk to me about your business, the Enchanted Fairy.
Oh, this is the most magical journey, because last year when I started stepping on my path, it was to serve moms who have children who had mental illness step out of the chaos to redefine who they are, right? And over the course of the year, I started to receive moms who, like with Ethan, I couldn't work, right? He was a high needs child. So I started to work with moms who had children with mental illness to create a business from home so that they could stay home with their kids, right? And then it started to morph and change again with the chakra readings. And I could see that it, you know, had to do with clearing out energy. So it was about creating a business that energetically lit them up and used their stardust. And then as the year continued, I now serve spirit-driven entrepreneurs of any level.
Wow.
Right? Any level. And what we do is we create the space within you to hold success, because we can only be as successful as we actually have space within us to hold. And once you've created the space to hold the success, then you can get out and make a huge impact in the world with your stardust.
Yes.
And that's what this is about for me. Like, I would ideally love to help 1,000 people serve 1,000 people.
That is awesome. Yeah. So you've used the word stardust. What's stardust?
It took a long time to get to that question. I know.
Yeah, it's taken, you know, for you, it's casual, you know, just a little stardust.
I believe that we are born from the stars, and we are born with a little piece of stardust in our heart. It's our mission. It is like what we were placed on this earth to do. And so as kids, we really start to foster it, right? You do all your sports clubs and you do all your arts and crafts, and like really you're just getting to know your stardust and what it is that lights you up and shines you bright, right? And so what happens sometimes, not all the time, is that we get redirected away from that light.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you need to follow this plan. This isn't going to be a good way for you to make money in the world. And we're told not to do our stardust. Right. And so for me, one of the most important things is that I get right up into the energy and sit next to your heart and feel your vibration, which is your stardust. And it could, at this time, if you haven't been kind of listening to it, kind of like I always describe it as your favorite pair of underwear, right? So like it's the pair that you put on that makes you feel so good, right?
That's right. We all have them.
Exactly. But over time, like all this dirty laundry gets piled over top. And so like you go into your heart and you're like, oh, I know it's in there, but this is like, it's so much work to get underneath it. And so like the work is to get through, or at least to get that first little vibration, that feeling of your stardust going like, hey, psst, hey, I'm here. Like, let's do something along this lines. And then we peel back layer and layer until you are standing, having a picnic, whatever you want to do, playing in a waterfall with your stardust, and you're back to that space of knowing you are shining the exact light you were born to shine.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
You know, again, we met it in this program, and at that time, it really was for me how to maximize the dollar. It was about chasing the almighty buck to pay off debt, to, you know, do great things and gather big houses and cars. And not that there's anything wrong with big houses. No. I don't feel that way, but it was my definition of my image. You know, that's what I was putting out to the world. And you know, and since then, as an entrepreneur, squirrel, you're constantly looking at, you know, different things that you can do, what you can't do, right? You lose focus. It wasn't until recently, and this resonates with me, what you're saying, it wasn't until recently where I went, wait a minute, it can't be about the money. It doesn't matter how much I chase the next best idea if it doesn't matter to me. And so I authentically went into myself and did some great work and thought, gosh, what am I good at? I'm running from what I'm good at because I think it doesn't pay enough, which is ludicrous. Leverage it in a different way.
Yes,
right?
Yes. You know, one of the greatest things I ever learned is that if you can solve a problem that somebody else is having based on what it is that is your magic, then you have a business.
Yes. And I have always felt like, what is my value? And so now my mission has been teaching people what's your value and how to really feel that value, that, you know, that person is priceless. So I totally get the need for what you're doing. You know, if I would have discovered it sooner, I wouldn't have went probably through the journey, which I needed. I know. I
it's part of it, right? Like you have to do it.
Right? It's not as if what you do is a cheat sheet to the top. It's part of the journey. And I would imagine what you do also brings out some emotional baggage that needs to be dealt with. How does that baggage get in the way for success that you've seen?
Well, because it is like, I call them obstacles into receiving from like I've become quite spiritual in the sense that, you know, we can be in a space to receive anything and all things, opportunity, events, clients, abundance, like anything that is I always say it's like your dream come true fairy tale life actually does exist. 100%. And it's yours and it doesn't look like anybody else's. But what gets in the way is, you know, maybe you've picked up, you know, like mine was, I didn't have a voice, right? Well, because I was super afraid that, you know, my family would stop speaking to me if I wrote my first book, that I would upset somebody, like whatever the belief that we pick up starts to create the reality that we have, right? And so I successfully had other businesses, but they didn't make me feel as good as this one, right? And so you might have the belief, like I can go back sometimes and see people where, you know, their parents fought a lot or something was happening and, you know, you're not meant to be seen. You didn't want to go in the room. You didn't want to cause any distraction. So you started to get that energetic feeling of hiding. Like it's just easier to hide. Like it's easier if I'm not seen, right? And that plays a role in actually, if you're wanting to bring your business in front of people, where all of a sudden you start to self-sabotage is what it really comes up as, right? And we talk about that current self before we level into the next version of ourselves. Whatever your belief that you're carrying or the obstacle or the energy, the stored energy, when you get to a certain place of expansion for yourself, it almost triggers, like you can kind of feel like the shaking going on. So your next version's right here and you're like, oh, I just want to expand into the next version of myself. And whatever that stored energy is within you will know exactly what to do or say to make you go like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough to do this. Maybe I need another certification. Maybe I need to go back to school. I don't think it's done quite right. Maybe if I spend another 3 weeks perfecting the program and making sure all my videos are right and that, you know what I mean? Whatever is that stored energy, it will come at you as a means to stop your progress.
Yes. Yes, that is so true. That is so true. So has there been times where you have felt a stall in your progress?
Well, yeah, almost every day. Like, let's be real. Like, it's not like I'm an open vessel of amazing. Oh no, right? Like, it's a daily thing. And like I was telling to you, like anxiety used to be my biggest fear. I hated when I got it. It would shut me down. I would stop doing everything. Now it's my superpower. Now it's my guiding light. It actually steers me. So I always say, dependent on whatever your superpower is. Some people have anger, some people have distraction, some people have, mine's anxiety. And so I used to go on trips with anxiety, but we would leave the house and anxiety would drive and I'd get in the passenger side. And so we'd go around the block and we'd pull right back in the driveway, right? Because it'd be like, I can't do it. Right. Now I love my anxiety. I invite my anxiety with me on every trip because it's coming anyway.
Yes.
Right? When we leave the house, I drive and anxiety takes the passenger side. And we're very firm that anxiety does not touch the radio. I'm still in control of that. But when we go to pull out of the driveway, I get to the destination and I honor and love my anxiety on the way. And if I don't actually feel that anxiety or discomfort, chances are I'm not extending into the next version of myself.
Oh, I got chills. Amazing. I love that. I love that.
I had anxiety before this podcast.
Right? No way.
That's totally true.
Well, you are a rock star, an absolute rock star. So, you know, I'm sure many of the listeners are asking, well, what happened between you and Ethan? How are things today?
So what happened is that this is where I was afraid that, you know, other parents with pitchforks would come and chase me down the street, and why I didn't tell my story for a long time is, you know, when it got to that place of toxic behavior, two things happened. A, I had to detach myself emotionally and know that he is a human, I am a human, and he needed to start his journey there. And then I had to detach myself from the outcome, which is huge.
Absolutely.
Right. And I got to a place with conversation to source where I knew that me trying to hold on to fear over what was happening to him was debilitating, and my human body was too small to carry that energy. So I gave it to God and angels and, you know, guides and transcendent beings of light, whoever it is that you have a conversation with, that's their job. That's their role, is to watch over. So I trusted, which is a big word, I trusted that Source was taking care of my son. And they were far better equipped to do so than I was. And after 6 months, and I was willing to break the relationship fully and walk away.
Okay.
That was the big difference, because I had been in and out, and he was 17 at the time where we actually finally had our break. And so to have that commitment of knowing when I did that, I felt like the major cord of attachment between Ethan and I, and all of the patterns and the behaviors completely broke.
Okay.
Right? And so 6 months later, when he messaged me and was like, Mom, I need your help, it was like tiptoeing into like a little like toe, can we trust each other? And it allowed us to rebuild a relationship based on a clean slate. And like we started to do Think and Grow Rich seminars together, and like, you know, he's got his things he's working through. And I swear to good gracious, me launching into my soul's journey was the greatest gift I gave him as well, right? So your biggest fear is that you're being selfish as a parent, but when you focus on your stardust and shining your light, it is the greatest mirror for your child to see.
Yes. Yes.
And so we're closer than we ever have been, which is beautiful.
Yeah, that is awesome, because it takes tremendous courage to be able to walk that path that you did.
Oh, there's a lot of crying. Oh, like disastrous crying, and like, you know, turning purple, blue, ugly cries and stuff, but it needed to be done. And I'm grateful that he actually is one of the biggest proponents of my book. And because I talk about codependency, and he's now like a little mom, like, hey Mom, I was here, and like, I need to give somebody your book because I could totally see like all the things that were going on. So it's kind of a really new way, because I had to get his permission.
Yes. How did he feel about your book?
Well, the thing is like, I had to sit him down, and I remember the conversation clear. He's like, so like, I want to write a book about our journey together. And his first initial like face, and I'm like, but you need to realize it's not really about you. It's about my journey, and there's just only going to be certain like highlighted times. And I told him the big monumental times. I said, but this book is to help other families get to the place that we got to. And when he looked at me, and this will make me emotional again, and he looked at me and he's like, Mom, if this is going to help other moms and their sons get to the relationship we have, then I'm here for you. And so like, it was really beautiful. And I read him every chapter as I was writing the book. And the biggest compliment he gave me was, wow, Mom, you're actually funnier than I thought you were going to be.
Nice. So there is humor in the book too. It's
my God, yeah. It's the only way I know how to deal with things. So I think I'm funny-ish.
I think you're totally funny. Yeah.
Thanks, Kristie.
Yes. You're hilarious. So, and I think that's important, because humor is essential to be dealing with life's darkest moments. You know, again, I've got a 16 and 17-year-old, so sometimes I'll use humor, and my daughter will look at me and she'll go, oh, too soon. Okay, I get it. Tomorrow we'll try again.
yeah, and it really is, because at least humor brings us back out, right?
Yes, and it brings us together into common ground again.
Yes.
You know, and there's something dynamic about being able to laugh at our own behavior.
Well, and laughter kind of sends a whole bunch of hormones that feel good through your body as well. Like there's a whole, like the whole laughter piece, and the whole connection piece, and the whole, like we are a very dry sense of humor family, like dry, like yes. There is no lack of puns going off in my house on a day-to-day basis. It's not even necessarily always funny anymore. It's just head shaking, like a lot of head shaking. But what's great is watching your kids develop their humor. So like where, you know, the pun is said and then there's the delayed reaction to the laugh, then you're like, oh, it takes a second to sink in.
Yes. So share with our audience, if you were to write a thank you letter to a person, who would you write that letter to and why?
It's like immediate. It would be to Angela Laria of the Author Incubator. And it really would be because she created the safest space for me to bring this book to life. And I say that because like my best friend that I have right now came from being in her program. The book, right, that opened me up to what it is that I'm really meant to serve with came from being in her program. And I was like a camel in the desert when I got to the author incubator, because I had done, you know, the business without the emotional without the business, the money mindset, and she was the full package. So I did the emotional work, I learned the business piece, I got everything. So she was like, do this, and it launched me being me. So like there is not enough gratitude in the world to offer to that space she created.
Okay. So she definitely has a great program. I've seen bits and pieces, but what you're saying is it's just life-changing.
It was 100% pivotal in my journey.
Okay. That's
100%. I don't know what other people's experiences are, but I do know, like, if you actually go to theauthorincubator.com, I'm a testimonial video, because I just, and it was just because by the time I was done the first book and we go to the castle for a marketing weekend, and I was like, I'd done everything she told me to do, like a good little student. And she was like, great, right? Because when we invest in ourselves, the kind of important part to that is to do the work that your mentors are actually asking you to do.
Right.
Crazy that. But when you do the work that they ask you to do, that's when the growth shifts and transformations happen.
Absolutely. That is awesome. So share with us again as we wrap up where people can find you and the types of services you offer.
So they can find me at Tamera, Tamara, at the Enchanted Fairy, and it's spelled FAIRY.ca. I am getting a website reboot right now, but it is still there. You can get the books on Amazon. But if honestly your viewers want a copy of either one of my books, please, I would love to give links to give all the people listening today free copies of my book, 100%.
No. Oh,
100%.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, share that link.
I will. I just have to go get them and I'll give them to you. And I would love to give them to everybody, because I stand in the fact that they were written to serve. But right now I work with people who are ready to do that internal shift work, who are ready to actually go deep within and clear out the chakras individually so that they can bring more, receive more in, whether it's abundance, opportunities, clients, compliments, if you can, like even compliments sometimes are hard to receive, right? But it's all about creating the space. And that's what my soul's mission is right now.
That is awesome. It has been amazing to sit in your space. I know that you are off to another mission at 11 o'clock. So we are wrapping up, and I am grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, I am so honored. Thank you again for allowing me into your energy and B into your podcast. So thank you.
Thank you for joining this episode of Unsung Heroes Live. Each week we highlight a hero who has created a life of joy and peace despite the challenges. Through their transparency, life's biggest questions are answered. For additional resources and community support, go to uncallcounseling.com. Register today as a member of this incredible tribe. Until next time, I'm your host, Kristie Knights. Be real, be raw, just be the hero that you are.